Thank you for tuning in. You are listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. As many of us know, we start approaching a little bit later in life and start thinking about our health a lot more than we ever did as our youth, because we realize that we're probably not as indestructible as we once thought we were. Invincible, if you were, being able to do just about anything we wanted to, eat the way we want to, drink the way we want to, live the way we want to. Well, joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today is someone who's going to share with us some ideas about how we can test and be sure that we can keep ourselves strong. So today we're going to talk with Dr. Sanjay Kapoor, and he is the scientific director at ZRT Laboratory in Beaverton, Oregon. ZRT recently introduced a comprehensive new blood spot test that determines people's risks for heart disease. As scientific director at ZRT, Dr. Kapoor has directed numerous research projects that influenced the development of this innovative new test. He received his doctorate in life sciences from India in 1993, and throughout his career has led numerous biomedical research studies related to heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and cancer. Almost call those the big four, if you will. And today, Dr. Kapoor is going to speak with us about heart health and the importance of testing for those over 50. And I'd like to welcome on the Beyond 50 radio program, Dr. Sanjay Kapoor of ZRT Laboratories. How are you doing today, Dr. Kapoor?
Wonderful, Daniel. Thank you so much for having me on this show.
You bet. Now, this is a pretty big subject because I know that as people approach midlife, they start really thinking about their life and especially their heart health. Now, let's talk about what we know about heart disease, for instance, and how it might be related to conditions like diabetes and obesity.
Well, that's a good question to start with. Since we have mentioned the topic to be cardiometabolic risk here, I would like to begin with letting our listeners know what exactly it is. What exactly is cardiometabolic risk, and what exactly do we know about heart disease and how all these things are related with diabetes and obesity? So to start with the word, with this new term, cardiometabolic risk, this is basically a combination, or we can say a cluster of several different risk factors like high blood glucose, high blood pressure, high triglycerides, large waist, smoking is a risk factor, and low good cholesterol, the HDL, what we call, and high LDL cholesterol, and physical inactivity. So if an individual has any three or more of these risk factors, they are known to have a very high risk of developing type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. And so it's important that such individuals be identified very early for their risk. And this is helpful both to them and their doctor to better plan their treatment strategies for prevention or progression of diabetes and heart disease. And basically this helps their clinician to come up with a smart management and treatment plan for cardiometabolic risk through working with them for their lifestyle changes and different pharmacological interventions, of course. So we know that the heart disease and diabetes pose significant threats to our health, especially as we grow older, as you mentioned. And, of course, it's a major challenge to the medical community today. We all know this. Although there have been several major advancements in the medical field as far as the diagnosis or the detection and treatment of these conditions is concerned, but unfortunately the problems continue to result in serious health complications, disability, and premature death, as we know. And the sad part is that the overall incidence of these diseases is still going to increase, trust me, as more and more people continue to age. And also, especially in this country, here in the U.S., there is such an increase in the obesity rates. Did you know, Daniel, that recently, actually in 2005, some scientific study came out that showed that the life expectancy has declined for the first time in this country? How did that happen? I mean, how did we let that happen? Right? We thought that we were working really hard to create a better world for us with so much of technological advancements in all different fields, including medical science. Well, I do agree. Yes, no doubt we did make a lot of progress in terms of finding cure and treatment for so many different conditions. But why still almost 1 million Americans die of heart disease every year? That is really sad. I mean, if we calculated that, that comes down to almost one death every 34 seconds.
Wow.
And oh yes, and out of all those, about 50% are less than 50, and the rest are over 50. And this is just because of the heart disease that I'm talking about. What about diabetes? I mean, more than 20 million people here in this country have diabetes. And trust me, this number is going to increase, and it is increased by 60% since last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And again, more than 50% people who have diabetes in this country are above the age of 50. And it's unfortunate that now we have started to see more and more cases of children with diabetes, which we could never imagine earlier. Because at one point, diabetes was considered as a condition in adults only. But the sad part is that our children are also being affected now. And can you imagine how much it costs us every year in terms of the dollar figure to fight against both these heart disease and diabetes?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, collectively, these conditions cost us, well, as I just mentioned, more than 1 million deaths every year. But in terms of money, it costs us more than $620 billion, both in direct and indirect costs. I mean, I always ask this question to myself and anybody that I talk to. I mean, what happened? Where did we go wrong? Is it really high time that we should stop and rethink? What did we do differently, or what did we actually not do that we should have done? And that has led to this position that we are seeing such increase in prevalence of these conditions.
You know, Dr. Kapoor, you bring up, to me, a really fascinating area that we've actually talked about here on the program quite a few different times, and you're wondering, and the question is, how come we're seeing a decrease in life expectancy? Why is there such a tremendous increase, for instance, in diabetes and heart disease? And I remember that when I was in, I believe it was the 6th grade, there was a friend of mine who had a doctor who basically specialized in hypothermia. That was what he did, but he was, a full-blown doctor. And he spoke to our class, and he said something that to me just not only scared the heck out of me because I was in 6th grade, but, had me thinking, well, if it's inevitable, what's the point? But what he was saying is that in this classroom, by the time all of you will reach the age of, say, 50 or 55 years old, he says, at least half of you will die from heart disease.
Right.
And I thought, that's pretty alarming. You're coming out of the gate, you're a kid, and he's sticking it to you like, my goodness, it's all over with by the time I'm 50. But I thought, how can he be so sure?
Absolutely.
And what could I do so I don't become that 50% that's 6 feet under? And so we've explored some of these possibilities through different programs that we've been doing here on the Beyond 50 radio show, and a couple of things kept coming up consistently, and you're the researcher, the doctor, and I don't pretend to be an expert, but here was some of the conclusions that we've had. One of them was the increase of processed foods and sugar that people are consuming, and the other was also linked directly to being inoculated or taking vaccines through needles.
Right.
Now, share with us what you have experienced in your research.
Well, actually, as you said, that's a really interesting story, and a quote from your teacher that you just said that by the age of 50, half of you will die. And, well, none of us actually like to accept that we will get old. I mean, I'm head of the class when it comes to say that I'm never getting old. I'm always staying young. Well, at least at heart. The problem is the heart really gets older as we age, as we all know, and we have to accept this reality. And though it is really unfortunate reality, but yes, as we grow old, our heart also ages. But as I said, some of us do live with a positive attitude, which is good. And I think this is how we should all live, with a positive attitude. And trust me, with this attitude, we can sure increase our life by minimum of 5 years. That's what has science proven now, and maybe more too in some cases. And again, it depends on our mental outlook and how we live, and not just the age. Science today agrees with this, but at the same time, we now have come to know so many different facts about our heart health, and we should realize that with increasing age, even when we live with a positive attitude and sound mental acuity, our heart undergoes some changes, and it continues to undergo those changes even when there is absolutely no disease, even when we think that we are healthy, or even when the doctor says that you are perfectly fine. But what we have to accept that the heart muscles start to weaken, and when the heart beats, these heart muscles cannot really relax completely during those beats. And when this starts to happen, those heart muscles, they become really stiff, and as a result, they start to function less efficiently as we get older. And well, I'm sorry to use this term older. Some of us really don't like this term, so I think I should use the term as we age.
Mm-hmm.
And
in some cases say age gracefully, because they may not like age. It's funny how we've got such a stigma about aging, which is something we do. So.
Absolutely. So what I was trying to say is that the loss of good function of these heart muscles is more prominent, especially when there is any heart disease or any other risk conditions that we will talk about today. And another thing that I would like to tell our listeners is that with increasing age, the heart doesn't respond that effectively, that efficiently to adrenaline. And this is the reason that older heart or aged heart cannot contract or cannot actually pump blood faster or vigorously when there is a need, especially when we work out or do any physical activity or exercise. So the point is, we should not be surprised if we see our capacity to work or to walk briskly or to work out and exercise has decreased as compared to when we were young. And we all know that and have experienced this very well, and we have seen that it was so easy to do something when we were 16 or 18 or 20, and the same thing is extremely difficult as we get into 30s and 40s and 50s. So our heart basically doesn't function that well anymore, and this is also the reason for changes in the blood pressure that we see normally high when the heart muscles are too stiff. And now these changes or a decrease in the capacity of heart to work efficiently, again, differs from person to person, and it all depends on how we live our life. What other conditions do we have, or have we developed, or have we received from our previous generation? And do we have any other disease? And how and what kind of decisions we made in life when it came to eating right, or how much we exercised, whether we've been couch potatoes all our lives, especially during and after the holidays, Daniel, that we just had, and with all that snow here in Northwest in the last couple of weeks. I mean, we all stayed indoors, you know that. And we all enjoyed those fresh-baked cookies and pastries and cakes and lots of other goodies. Well, this is funny, actually. Sometimes I ask myself, why do we call these as goodies, and when they're not so friendly to our bodies?
Exactly.
Yep. So anyways, we have to realize the importance of lifestyle changes as early as possible in our lives, and it is never too late, trust me. All the risk factors basically affect overall quality of life and, of course, how long we live. And definitely I would like to spend a little bit of time on talking to you about the risk factors as you started with your question. So the main risk factors that I want to cover in our discussion today are the blood pressure, the smoking, obesity, overweight, and all these things that basically we should be careful about. So I want to begin with talking about hypertension.
Okay.
I mean, blood pressure. Uh, it is so common to hear about this word these days, especially in older individuals. And the statistical analysis shows that 1 in 3 people in this country have hypertension, and any untreated or uncontrolled hypertension is a major potent risk factor for heart disease and stroke. What I think is, and what we all think, is that the diagnosis and treatment of high blood pressure is again challenging. You know why? Because it is relatively asymptomatic, and there are no outstanding symptoms that one can actually look for. And just because of this reason, almost 1/3 of affected population are almost unaware of their condition. And it's really surprising. They don't even know that they are hypertensive. Isn't this sad?
Uh-huh.
I mean, so what do we need to do? I mean, as we get older, I think, and these are the ADA recommendations that I'm talking about, the American Diabetes Association, that recommends that we should have our blood pressure measured annually. And when annually? When there are no other risk factors present, or when we think that we are completely healthy. And but when there is any other condition present, any other risk condition which you feel, if you are overweight, or if you have a family history of diabetes or heart disease, so we should monitor our blood pressure more frequently. And if at all your blood pressure is high, if you detect at some time point that your blood pressure is really high, you need to get proactive and get treated ASAP. Surprisingly, some of us think that increasing blood pressure with increasing age it's normal. It's normal part of aging, but that is not true. I mean, many people who I talk to in their 50s or 60s, they have expressed this thought that isn't this a normal process of aging, that the blood pressure rises? So it has been now seen that we should control the blood pressure even at old age, and it can really make a big difference. It can save so many lives. And although it's not very easy and quick to treat hypertension at old age as compared to those who are young, but it has been seen that the treatment plans do work. And so many different studies are out there that have shown that using antihypertensive medications can actually reduce the rate of other complications that result due to high blood pressures. So what I'm trying to say is reducing the elevated blood pressure reduces the overall risk of stroke or heart attack. And now with that said, let us not just rely upon those medications to work wonders. I mean, sometimes people think that, okay, there's a magic pill that will just take care of it all. The thing is, we have to get proactive. We have to help our doctor and the medications to do their job by equally contributing in the treatment plan. And several studies have shown that quitting smoking or weight loss or actually just the moderate exercise can help significantly in controlling the blood pressure.
Mm-hmm. I know one of the things, too, when you talk about ways that we can reduce, for instance, hypertension, obesity, you talk about, eliminating smoking, beginning to eat right. We've heard these things before, but people, when they hear exercise, they think, sometimes perhaps in extreme situations, like, that just seems like a lot of work. I don't really like to exercise. But basically, the bottom line is just getting up and moving, and and I would say that maybe getting up in the morning or whatever part of the day you feel most comfortable doing it, get out and just walk in your neighborhood for 20 or 30 minutes.
Oh, yes.
Just that alone, because then you do two things. And this was actually an interesting suggestion that I had read, I believe it was in a book that could have been about reducing stress, or that was an element. If you get up and just walk around in your own neighborhood 20 to 30 minutes each day, for one thing, you reduce stress just in the walk alone, but then you get to know your neighborhood and things that you just never seen before.
Absolutely, that is correct. Actually, I'm glad you brought up this point of exercise. And of course, at times it is okay to relax, but to be a couch potato, no, it's just not okay. It's just not right. I mean, although we cannot rewind our life, I wish we could, but unfortunately we cannot go back and we cannot correct all those mistakes we made in the past. We just cannot undo the effects of our sedentary lifestyles and all those physical inactivity. But I always say that it's never too late to start moderate exercise. I mean, we can always start with a mild activity, as you said, just walking in the neighborhood, or just staying physically active throughout the day, and we can then slowly increase the intensity and duration of walking or exercise. I mean, we can always start slow and then build intensity. In fact, scientific studies have shown great benefits from just 30 minutes walk per day for 5 days a week. And even at ZRT Lab, we did a small study on the effects of exercise on different cardiometabolic risk factors. And that was a very simple study, and the ZRT employees volunteered in that study, and we measured their cardiometabolic risk factors, risk markers, before and after a 4 month of exercise that they had to do. And exercise was nothing but just simple walking or a mild exercise, only 30 minutes for 5 days a week. And you cannot imagine how much improvement we saw in their overall health and wellness in terms of the risk markers that I will talk to you about in this discussion. And trust me, I mean, I'm talking to my listeners out there. This only 30 minutes of exercise, mild, very mild exercise per day for 5 days a week. This will improve your blood glucose. This will improve your lipid levels. It will help lower blood pressure. It will help you reduce weight. And it will help your insulin work better if you're diabetic. Please make sure that you work on losing your weight. Well, more weight is always a problem, especially like when we age. Excess weight adds up to all those complications of other problems we have, other problems we get, and especially if you have diabetes. And controlling diabetes also becomes a huge challenge when you're overweight. It's a big problem. We all know. And also, like I just remember that some people, when they have to go for different surgeries, again the weight becomes a problem because then it can lead to different complications of surgery. It really gets risky out there.
Now, Dr. Kapoor, for those of you just joining us, we're talking with Dr. Sanjay Kapoor of ZRT Laboratory, and this is a wonderful, innovative company where you can actually send in whether it's a saliva sample or even a small blood sample, and they're able to detect and test both hormone levels and just recently, as I understand here, basically the condition of your heart, whether or not you're actually at risk for heart disease regardless of what age. Now, Dr. Kapoor, now let's talk about ZRT Laboratory and the particular test that was created for detection. What exactly does it detect, and what does it take for a listener out there that says, you know, I've become kind of curious, do I need to go see a doctor? How can I go about the process of being tested through ZRT Laboratory?
That's a good question that you asked me, and I was going to come to that. ZRT Lab, actually, we are all about cutting-edge research and technological innovation in the field of medical testing. And as the company mission goes, advancing wellness through excellence in research, education, and minimally invasive testing. And our founder, President Dr. David Zawa, who's a biochemist himself and a breast cancer scientist, laid out a very strong foundation of this hormone testing lab almost a 11 years ago, and the major goal is to stay ahead of all the developments in medical research and testing. So basically, the ZRT tests provide help to identify preventable hormone imbalances, and now we are really excited about our new cardiometabolic profile that we have developed in dried blood spot. And the cardiometabolic profile actually includes testing in dried blood spot sample that the patients, that people can collect at the convenience of their own home. Basically, you can take charge of your own health, and you can actually be in the driver's seat and take charge of overall wellness. So basically, this kit that goes out to people, which they can obtain from their provider, or they can also call ZRT at 866-466-1636, or they can visit us on our website at www.crtlab.com to receive their kit in the mail. And this kit basically requires no special handling. And once you have collected your sample, it's returned to the lab for analysis in a prepaid envelope. And the good part is that the convenience of collection at home allows for early morning testing, and also if you have to test several times during the day, you do not have to drive across town to get your blood drawn from your vein. I mean, I personally hate to get venipuncture on myself, especially when my phlebotomist cannot find my vein for the first time.
Certainly. I think we've all experienced that.
That is so scary. And especially my veins are so deep-seated, and it's always I have to be poked 3 or 4 times to get my blood drawn. So this blood spot is basically a nearly painless finger prick, and the tests are really very reliable, accurate, and after the analysis, a comprehensive test report and evaluation is generated, which is either made available online or mailed, or faxed to the patients or the provider within 5 to 7 business days. And the people can also discuss their test results with ZRT physician staff by calling a toll-free number or by visiting the website at ZRT Lab for more details. And yes, there's tons of information available online, which I'm sure will be really helpful for everyone listening out there. And I'm sorry to interrupt you. Actually, I wanted to let the listeners know about the recent cardiometabolic profile that we have developed in dried blood spot. That it has the main important markers, the risk markers that we know that the scientific studies have shown, which are really important to monitor at times, like fasting triglycerides. It's a strong indicator of an atherogenic state that we need to monitor. Hemoglobin A1C is the other one. It's a better indicator of impaired glucose tolerance than fasting blood glucose measurements. And hemoglobin A1C is a marker that basically measures your glucose, your average glucose during last 3 months. So it's not just your morning glucose or afternoon glucose. So it tells you, it indicates what your average glucose has been in the last 3 months. And then the panel also includes fasting total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol. LDL, as it starts with L, you can remember it easily, lousy cholesterol. I mean, that was really funny. Somebody told me the other day that how can you remember difference between LDL and HDL? So LDL that starts with L is a lousy cholesterol, which we need to keep low. And HDL that starts with H, we can remember that as a happy cholesterol. So we need to have a happy cholesterol level high. So these markers can predict a dyslipidemic state, which is likely to contribute to deposition of atherosclerotic plaque in our arteries. And then I want to mention something about a new marker, the C-Reactive protein, which is very much in the news these days. Because earlier we knew about the traditional risk markers like cholesterol and triglycerides and insulin. Now, this new marker, which we know as C-reactive protein, it's a marker of inflammation in our body. I mean, we know that there's any kind of inflammation is not really good for us, and some scientific studies have shown that there is a direct link between heart disease and inflammation. And since there is also a connection between obesity and inflammation, this shows that obese individuals are more prone to increased inflammation. And so this basically increases the risk of getting heart disease. And this inflammation can be due to several different reasons and come from different tissues in the body. But it becomes a problem when it is coming from the fatty deposits in our arteries, and that gets really more risky and dangerous and can pose major risk for our heart. So this new marker, the C-reactive protein, it's an emerging marker of inflammation which provides better information to assess the overall risk of heart disease. So by measuring the CRP levels, we can know the level of inflammation, we can find out risk of insulin resistance or diabetes, and it is also possible to determine the risk of any future heart-related conditions. Because some studies have shown that patients with high C-reactive protein levels have almost 1.5 to 4 times higher risk of heart attack than those with low CRP levels. And it's even more harmful if someone has both high LDL, our lousy cholesterol, and high CRP, high C-reactive protein. And these high levels of C-reactive protein could result from excessive smoking or any kind of chronic inflammation or obesity or sometimes due to imbalance in our hormones.
I'll tell you, and it's amazing that we're in a day and an age where a person can conduct this test at home. It can be screened. They can go to their doctor. They can say, this is a recent test. What suggestions should I make that I can change this? And you really begin to take your own health in your own hands. And to me, it would seem that you would also save a lot of money by doing it this way, because then you can start doing the right things rather than waiting until it's too late. Then the doctor becomes the middleman again. You're waiting for the test, and on and on and on and on and on.
Right.
Now, as we're running short on time here, why don't you go ahead and give the website again and tell people how they can go about approaching ZRT Laboratory, the kind of testing that can be done quickly here, and what they can do to do that.
Well, the website is www.zrtlab.com. Z as in zebra, R as in Roger, T as in Tom, lab.com. Again, www.zrtlab.com. And they can also call us at 503-466-2445 or toll-free 1-866-600-1636. Once again, it is toll-free 866-600-1636. And I can also be reached through my email if somebody has any questions. Since we did not get into any technical details today, I'll be glad to return your emails. My email is skapoor@zrtlab.com. Skapoor is SKAPUR @zrtlab.com, and I'll be more than happy to answer any of your technical or non-technical questions that you may have. And thank you so much, Daniel, for having me today, and I really enjoyed talking to you.
Well, very much, and I feel the same way too. Dr. Sanjay Kapoor of ZRT Laboratory, again, thank you for being on the program today and letting us know that it just doesn't have to be that bold and grim when it comes to being 50, especially if there are ways that you can test and find solutions, as well as ways that you can actually change the way your health is going. And again, thank you for talking with us on the program today.
Thank you very much.
You bet. So there it is, folks. It's just, they say, Dr. Heal Thyself. Well, this day and age, with the way technology is advancing, we can take advantage of that by, in a way, eliminating the middleman. You go to the doctor, to find out what's wrong with you, but here now, You can begin a test in your own home. You send it off. They send you the results. Then you go see your doctor. It's much like knowing how to, if you want to use the analogy, you know how to work on and fix your car, but as you begin to gain that knowledge, then you just take it to a professional, because really in the long run it saves you a lot more money because they get it done, and they get it done right, they get it done efficiently, and this is very much the same way here. So again, ZRT Laboratory, and it's a wonderful sponsor of the Beyond 50 radio program. So if you're suffering from hot flashes, foggy thinking, sudden weight gain, low libido, mood swings, and other effects of aging, ZRT Laboratory, the forerunner in hormone testing, is your first step toward ending troublesome symptoms. Just visit them online at ZRT Lab, that's ZRTLAB, www.zrtlab.com, to find out how their home collection kits can help detect and correct hidden hormone imbalances. Let testing be your guide to symptom relief and life-changing solutions that begin with you. Would like to thank our guest joining us here from ZRT Laboratory today, Dr. Sanjay Kapoor of ZRT Laboratory. So be sure to visit him as well, and visit ZRT Labs at their website. Thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis, and remember, live your day past halfway.